Hello friends, Mark Johnson here. Welcome back to another episode of the TRIRIGA War Room, where experts advise. Okay friends, in this episode we are going to do some unit testing of our base form that we created. So in our previous episode, we went ahead and we created what is called a manager query so that we can go ahead and be able to create records and delete records of our object type, right? So we're finally able to actually instantiate instances of the object that we created. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to log into the system. And then from here, what we are going to need to do, we're going to need to navigate to the query manager so that we can open up our manager query and create our record. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Tools, and then we're going to go to the Report Manager, System Reports, and I can just search on CST since it's the only thing in this out-of-the-box environment that's custom. So I'll open up our manager query, and I'm going to go ahead and run it. Now you don't have to open a query in order to run it. You can just click over here on the little run command and that'll actually run. So let's go ahead and click add. And so this is kind of where we sort of left off last time, right? We saw that, oops, we had made a mistake. Our attention section is visible. There's no message in it, which makes sense, right? Because we never created any message. So we do need to fix this. And so the system tab is also going to have it as well, since we copied the system tab from the general tab. So the first thing that we notice that we need to fix is going to be this attention section. Let's go ahead and do that. We're going to need to open up the form builder tool. So I'm going to right click here and I'm just going to click on open a new tab. And you can do that here in the newer versions. When they first started moving to this carbon black side navigation stuff, you could not right click on any of these things here and open them up in a new tab. However, at this level here where it's at IBM TRIRIGA, you could right click and open in a new tab. Then of course the other option is you could duplicate a tab using the browser functionality. But let's go ahead and go into our form builder. Now with our object, it's currently visible, right? That attention section. Well, we have to figure out where do we want to fix this, right? Because you can make things visible or hidden at the BO level or the form level. Now in this case we're hiding and showing sections, which you can't really do at the BO level, right? So if we were just concerned about the field, the user message TX field, then we would actually have real choice here. But something to remember is that with a form you can be more restrictive, but you can't be less restrictive. So if you have something set at read only or not visible at the BO level, you can't make it visible at the form level. However, if it's visible at the BO level, you can make it not visible at the form level. So we do definitely want the form. So let's go down to our CST Sports and open up our form. And there's our attention section and the system, and then there's a general, we need to revise this. Click on our attention section and then look at our property and we can see that it's visible. We don't want that to start off being visible, so we're going to go ahead and apply our change. Click down here on the system tab and just pay attention to what you're doing, right? Because like this visible here, this is for the whole system tab, not just the attention section. So you always got to make sure that you're not in too big of a hurry. Start rushing is when you make mistakes, and the system isn't really forgiving, although it is much more so now with revisions. You can at least publish the previous revision. Back when I started in TRIRIGA, you had to get real creative. Like you would have to not publish the form so that the published version in the system you could OM out and then OM it back in order to set things back. So anyways, back from that rabbit hole, let's set this to be not visible and apply it. And we're going to publish. All right. So now that our changes have been published, those changes will now take place within the system. All right. So if I come back over to my form, we're going to see that, hey, this is still open, right? Because we haven't refreshed the screen or done anything. And, and for this particular instance, right, the section is visible. Those were the default settings at the time we opened this. Now the new default settings say it should be hidden, so we're going to just go ahead and close it. That record is in the null state, so the system will go ahead and remove it. We don't have to do anything to it. Come back to our manager query. I'm going to click add a new record, and notice, hey, our attention section is no longer visible. Great, right? We've already found and fixed our first little issue. All right, from the manager query, then we've now created the record. So let's put in some values to test. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to call this sports unit test. And all right, for those of you that ever took typing back in high school, you'll probably recognize that particular phrase because it uses every letter in the alphabet. All right, so now we've got values. Let's go ahead and click on our Create Draft button here. And now we can see that our status says Draft. So if we come over onto the System tab, right, you see our record state is Draft, and it's being represented by the status of Draft. So record state and status are two separate things, right? The status is just a classification value, but developers mix those up all the time, and they kind of use them interchangeably, right? I can use whatever status value I want for any state that I want, right? But by convention, we pick a value that makes sense. So, you know, I hear some developers say, oh, I'm in the draft state. Well, you're not really in the draft state. You're in the tri-draft state. The draft is the status. So the first state transition looks like it's good. Our status is set. The record state is draft. And I'm noticing one thing that we're going to want to have here. So if you want to properly unit test this and all the different state transitions, then you need to verify the status value as well as the previous status value. There's just one problem here. We didn't put the previous status value on this form. So we need to do that, and it should be here on the System tab. So we need to go and add that onto our form, right? Because the field is already on the business object. So this is just the kind of, you know, iterative building that happens, right? You build something and you start to test it, and then you see flaws, mistakes, and sometimes they're just kind of minor, right? In this case, having the previous status, it's kind of minor. It's just to help unit test. It's not, we're not using that value for anything else, but we still want to have it available. So I'm going to minimize. Actually, you know what? I won't minimize. Let me close this record. Then you'll be able to see it inside the query that we have. We'll go back over to our form. We revise, and then we need to add in the field. So we need to come down to View and view our components so that it shows up down here. And there's try previous status. We'll add it in. And I just added it in into the attention section. Right, so you always got to pay attention to what you're clicking on. So now we're going to have to delete it from the attention section. Click on the record section. And now we can add our previous status here. And the other thing we want to look at, right, this value should not be editable. All right, you don't want a user to change that value, right? That should be all driven by the system. So even an admin user shouldn't be able to change that value. So I could tell based off of the box that that field was editable. So we need to fix that. Let's click apply. It looks like our modified by is editable too. So let's go ahead and fix that while we're here. All right. All this looks okay, and I'm going to go ahead and click on publish, apply, and then publish. Let's make sure my change. All right, so now we have our field here. It's been published. It's available in the system for use. So now if we come back to our record and we open up our record and we come to our system tab, we'll see the previous status is blank, right? Which actually makes sense in this case, right? Because our previous status was null. It wasn't in a state. So there's no value. A null value is an empty value, right? So we don't say anything, right? The only time that you actually put a status value when it's in the null state is when it's been deleted. And then you give it a status of deleted to indicate that it's deleted. Now the benefit of that is not great anymore. It used to be you could still select records that were in the null state. Nowadays the TRIRIGA queries will not pull them in the null state. So you used to be able to have the ability or the opportunity to kind of undelete a record. Now if you delete a record, the only way to undelete it is through direct database manipulation to change the state and stuff so that the cleanup agent doesn't pick it up. But now we can at least validate our previous status and our status. So I just wanted to show you this kind of development process, right? Not just a happy path. Everything works right. Everything's done right exactly, you know, on the first try. Right? This is much more realistic and indicative of the kind of development that you're going to do, right? You're going to make mistakes along the way. Nobody's perfect, even after doing it a long time. The important thing is you want to catch your mistakes, right? So that's why you do the unit testing. You know, if you have somebody else catching your mistakes, that's not good, right? Because the earlier in the process that you catch a mistake, the cheaper it is to fix, right? When you have somebody else pointing them out, then their salaries have to be paid to point out your mistake, and then your time to fix a mistake, and then their time to retest, as well as your time to test. So always unit test. All right, so back to our testing. We're testing. We're verifying our state transitions. All right, so if you want to see or kind of remember, we can pop over back here. Right, so our state transition. So from the null state, right, the only one that was visible was create draft. Upload hidden was hidden, and retire hidden was hidden. So we've triggered this draft transition, and now we've gone from null to the TRIDAF. So here's where we sit. So the actions that should be available to us should be save and close, save, activate, delete, copy. There's this invalid upload hidden, which we should not be able to see because it's hidden. So let's just verify that. Save and close, activate, delete, copy. Right? Save and close, activate. Oh, where are the other ones? Well, there's this more here. So if we click on more, there's delete and copy. So by default, right, we only get 3 values here, and then everything else shows up as more. So if you recall back into the state transitions, right, we had the ability to set things as secondary actions, and the secondary ones mean they're going to show up here under this menu automatically. Right? You always want delete to be one of those secondary actions, right, because then that helps minimize or cut down on the chances of accidental deletion, right? Because with these buttons up here, right, you go to click on activate, and or let's say activate was delete, and you wanted to hit save, and you come and you just accidentally slid too far and you hit delete, and then boom, it deletes your record, right? It's not going to pop up and say, are you sure? Are you really sure you want to do that? So always protect the user from themselves, right? and minimize the chances of those accidental deletions. Make delete an intentional act. So we have our save and close. If I click on save and close, it should close the record. There should be no change in my states or my statuses. So I'm going to open my record back up. My status is still draft. My system state is still in the try draft. Previous status is still null, right? None of those changed. So that particular state transition worked. It closed as it was supposed to. And now save. Alright, so we have save. Our state's still the same, previous status still the same, and status still the same. Right, which is what we expect. We didn't put status and previous status values on those save and close transitions, if you recall, right? Because you're not leaving the state, so it doesn't make sense to change the status. But there may be a use case out there in which you do want to have a different status value when somebody clicks save versus it just being in state it is. So, it is possible you can set field values on state transitions, right? So that's one of the things that you can do. You could set it for whatever reason, but we don't have a valid reason here. All right. The next thing is going to be delete and copy and activate. I'll click copy. Now, copy is not really going to do anything for us, right? It's just triggering that state transition. That state transition is going to happen, and it's going to come back. If you recall, when we did and we built that state family, we didn't attach a workflow or anything to it. So there's no workflow attached on the sub action. We haven't created any workflow, so there's no asynchronous workflow that's listening for that copy event. So currently that copy action isn't going to behave any different than the save action, right? Because any successful state transition saves the record, right? That's why you don't have to hit save and then activate. So let's verify our status is the same and our states are the same. Okay, or actually our state and then our status is the same. So try draft and then previous status is still null. General, it's still draft. All right. So I've tested those. So if I hit delete here, it's going to transition back to the null state. Now, thankfully I didn't set up the delete to close the record. So if this was a mistake, I can still recover. I can still move it back to the draft status just by clicking on the create draft. But let's verify our status. All right, our status is deleted. All right, that's good. Our previous status was draft. So we know in this particular case, just by looking at the statuses, right, that we took this transition. Our record was in the try draft state and it's gone through the delete state transition and ended back up in the null state. But instead of just being blank for null, we indicate delete to show that, this was intentionally deleted. This isn't an accident that it's in the null state. Let's go back to our record. And we will go ahead and click create draft, and that takes us back. All right, so at this point now we have tested save and close. We've tested save. We have tested the copy, and we have tested delete. So the last one that we have to test now is the activate. So let's go ahead and click on the activate. And the activate does close the record, if you recall. Since our record closed, we need to open it back up so that we can verify our state and our statuses. So for that, we need our manager query once again. We'll come back in. Click on our record, and in this case we can see, hey, our status is review in progress. Our previous status was draft, and our state is try review. All right, this makes sense, right? But why is it not in the active state? Well, we'll get to that in just a moment. Alright, so we were here, we were in the tri-draft state, we clicked the activate transition. So this is a very common state family that's used all over in TRIRIGA. So the activate here goes to the review in progress. So we have the ability to put an approval, and then on the approval, then move it to the active state. Or if the approval was denied, we could return it back to the draft state. Right? Or if it came from the revision to active, then we could return back to the revision state. So as it is right now, we're here in this review state. We can see we've got a copy action. There's this final approval hidden, but it's hidden. The return revision hidden is hidden. The return draft hidden is hidden. Well, that's going to be a problem for us, right? Because now we can't click on anything. So what do we do? Well, there are two options. One, we could go and we can create our approval. We can create an approval workflow that just listens for this, activate, and then automatically triggers the final approval hidden and move it on for us. But we're not going to get into approvals in this particular lesson. That'll be for a future date. But in essence, that's how it works. Is you've got a workflow that you go and you create, and then it'll move this, right? The other option is we can make some of these transitions to not be hidden, so then they'll be selectable by the user. So we'll go ahead and do that. And since in this particular case we're wanting to test, I'm going to actually need to make each one of these not be hidden so that we can select them. Or I'm going to have to build, workflow out and other stuff to be able to properly test it. But we do want to verify these things. Same things for these other hidden transitions, right? If these are possible to use, we need to actually test them and verify them. So we're going to have to go back and we're going to make some changes. It may be at the BO level, it may be at the form level, just depends on where we have set these to not be visible, right? Because again, your form level cannot be less restrictive than your BO level. So if these are set to be hidden at the BO level, we can't make them not hidden at the form level. So let's go back to our form. And we will need to be in revision so that we can make changes. Go to our state transition. So we are currently here in review. We'll set that one for default display and we will apply the change. Return revision hidden. And we will set that one to default display. And return draft hidden. Alright, so while I'm at it, I might as well do these ones too. Because we do need to test these. If these are going to be part of our form, just because they're hidden doesn't mean we don't test them, right? So we're going to need to test them and then set them back to be hidden. So we'll need to do some validation after our testing to ensure that we've set back all of the different transitions that should be hidden. Let's see if we have any other ones that we're going to need to do. Okay. So all of our transitions should now be visible so that we can select them, so that we can move them, right? And this is also kind of a cheat or a shortcut sometimes people do when they get a record that's stuck in a state and it can't be moved to another state, is they'll have to go in and make at least a transition be visible so that then they can then transition it and then move it back. The other option is to do it with workflow, because it doesn't matter if the transition is visible or not to the user. Workflow has access to all transitions. As long as it's a valid transition for that state, it can trigger it. I'm going to hit save. Come back to the layout tab. We'll publish our form. Alright, in order for these changes for our record to take effect, we're going to have to reload the form. So we're going to need to trigger it. Right. So in this case, I just went to the System tab. That caused the form to reload. I pulled the data, the permanent data from the database, and so our form updated as well. Right. So now we have our final approval hidden, and we've got our copy action. So I'm going to go ahead and test the copy action first, because it's not going to actually leave our state. Hit copy. It's just going to save the record in this case. So our previous status does not change. It's still a draft. Our record state is still the same. We're still in the try review state, and we're still in review in progress. So now we just need to figure out, well, how do we want to test this, right? I'm going to go ahead and test this return draft hidden, and then I can come back, right? And then I can test these transitions. Or actually, I can go ahead and trigger this, come all the way back down to the null state. Well, delete it, and then come back into the null state. We can test our upload hidden and our retire hidden. And then we can traverse back. This way, we'll be able to clear out all the different transitions on null. So you can test this in any way you want. As long as you test all the transitions, you should be fine. The thing is, the more you skip around and you do different transitions in different states, the more likely you are to miss one. So for me, I prefer to go back and eliminate one state at a time, right? So if I can eliminate all the transitions on null, I know I've tested those, and then I can move on and just slowly we'll clear off each state until I've tested all of them. We'll go back to our record. We'll select the return draft hidden. Our status is draft, which is what we expect. That's good. Come over to our System tab. We can see that our previous status was review in progress. All right, we're back into our draft state. If we look at this, right, all right, we've done this upload hidden. Now we need to test this retire hidden. So I need to go back to the null state. So I'm going to come back here under more, delete. I don't have to go and check my status and state now, right? We've already looked at delete. We already know it works. We've already validated it, right? That's not going to change, right? That functionality is still the same. So now we're going to try a retire hidden. And our record state is in try retired. Our previous status was null, so it was retired directly from the null state, which I'm still not sure why you'd want to do that. Well, actually, I do. There's a lot of workflows in the system that'll capture the delete action and then instead transition the records to retired. So that's where this particular transition comes in handy, right? Because if you just think about it, you're like, well, if you're creating a record and you decide you don't want it, why not just leave it be and let it get deleted, right? Why would you keep it? And so that's why, right? Like people records, location records, and that sort of thing, right? They get associated to all kinds of other types of records. And so if you delete that record, then those associations get deleted, and, right, and you can lose historical information. And so it's better to actually just retire those records and not use them than to delete them and remove them from the system. And that's why we have those workflows in the system that will trigger on that the workflow cancel event. All right, so previous status null, retired, that's good. Let's check our status value is retired. That's good. So now we are here. We have now tested all our transitions from null. I want to get back to the draft state, right? Because we're almost done testing those, right? Because we tested the save and close, save, activate, delete, copy. We do need to test the invalid upload hidden. So what we want to do, how do we navigate from here? So it would be helpful if you've got multiple monitors to put that state family up on one monitor and have your record that you're testing on the other, so you can look and see that, right? Unless you've got a really good memory and you know all those state transitions and what what the route to take is, especially if it's through multiple states. So unretire revision hidden, that was the first transition we wanted. And we can go ahead and validate that. So now we're in the revision state, and revision in progress is our status. Try revision is our state, and previously we were retired. That may all make sense. So actually, this is a good example of what the previous status is used for. On the state transition, so you can see normally for the retired state, you just have this unretire action, which does not leave the state. And so the way this works is you have a workflow that listens for the unretire action, or you call it on the sub action, right? And it's going to check the previous status value. And then based off of the previous status value, you will then trigger one of these two state transitions to move your record back to the state in which it was retired from. We have now, so we've triggered this, and we're back into our review state. We want to go activate and then return draft hidden. See, it's easy to get confused. So we activate, and again, activate closes our form. So we're testing that as well. That the transitions that are supposed to close our form do, and the ones that aren't. No, again, we're in review in progress. Revision in progress, try review state. All right, just be careful. A lot of people will mix up the revision in progress and review in progress. And return draft hidden. All right, we're back in our draft state, and so our final transition in the draft state is this invalid upload hidden. Let's go ahead and test it. Boom. We are now in the upload error state. Draft was our previous status. Upload error is our current status. So we do have our value set, so that's good. Come back to our state family and look. So we're here. All right, we've only got one way out, and that's to validate upload, and that's going to take us all the way back down to our draft. So we have now tested the null state and the draft state. The next is going to be finishing off on the review, which is actually going to be finished because we have actually tested all these, well, except for the return revision hidden. We did final. Did we do final approval? All right. But we'll just go ahead and make sure these are done, and we'll just keep working our way through just like this. Back to our record. So only one transition, validate upload. Boom. Uh-oh. Our status still says upload error. But what's our state? Our state is try draft, and our previous status says draft. Now we made a mistake, looks like. Looks like we transposed our previous status and our status. So we found an issue here. The values are set, remember, in the BO, right? on the sub action. That's one of the things that we can do is we can set field values. So in order to fix this, we're going to have to go all the way back to the business object. So let's do that. And we will go ahead and open another tab. Go to our data modeler, CST Sports. We will revise our business object, go to Tools, go to the BO state transition, and it's upload error. Here's our transition. We'll open up our sub action. And there's the problem, we didn't set any values. So missed that. So we need status and previous status. So it wasn't that we transposed, so our status is draft and our previous status is upload error. Let's validate. Our values are here. Save our state family. Cancel. And now we need to publish our BO so that those changes take effect. Our BO is published. So we got to go back to our record. Invalid upload hidden. Status upload error. Previous status draft, okay, that's good. So now if I hit validate upload, now our status is draft, that's good. And upload error. All right, beautiful. See, this is why you always unit test, right? You got to catch these mistakes. You're not going to get it perfect. You know, sometimes you'll surprise yourself, and you'll be right there. But most of the time, it's going to be, you know, development is a very iterative process like this, right? Build a set of functionality, test it. Build it, test it. Build it, piece by piece, module by module, functionality by functionality. Don't try and build the whole thing at once and then test, right? Because then when it doesn't work, you have a lot more use cases, a lot more paths, a lot more things to test, right? Things that could be a problem. I always want to, just incrementally build like this so you can, check off. Because once I've done this, right, and then if I run into an issue, I know for a fact that the state family has been thoroughly tested, right? I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to go back to it. I can say, okay, well, for whatever particular issue, where else could that problem be, right? And rule out the state family. All right. Null's done, try draft's done, and so now we're going to activate. All right, so we want to test these transitions. So if we go and we do the final approval hidden, put us in the active state, and then we can revise, and then we can reactivate, and then we can return revision hidden. And that will finish off the review state for us. So final approval hidden. We are in the active status. Our state should be triactive. It is. Under previous status, review in progress. It is. That's great. And now we can hit revise. And now we are in the try revision state. Our previous status was active. Our current status is revision in progress. Beautiful. That's great. We'll click activate. It closes the record for us. We'll open it back up. We are in review in progress. And our previous status is a revision in progress. And our current state is try review. So that's good. Let's go back to our state family. We have now tested all these values. And for activate, we've tested revise. So let's go back to activate, and we can test the retire and the copy, and then we'll be done with it. Try and speed this process up a little bit more. So final approval hidden puts us back in the active state. Alright, let's test retire. So we retired, we should be in the retired state. And before we went to revision, we'll go back and we'll trigger active. We just need to open up our record. It's retired state, our status. Our state is try-retired and active is previous. That's good. So if I just hit unretire, it's going to act like save. There's nothing attached to it, right? Or transition. Doesn't set status or previous status. Unretire active hidden moves it back to the active state. The try-active state, rather. Our status is active. Our system. Our previous status is retired. And we are tri-active state. And now our copy functionality is showing up. So, not sure what was going on there. We'll hit copy. And that's going to act like a save. It's not going to change statuses or states. So we've tested the null, try draft, try view, try active. We just need to finish testing a little bit on try revision and try retired. So we will revise and we'll test save and close. We've already tested this activate, and then we can test retire and copy as well. So we revise, save and close, closes our form like it's supposed to. Good. Let's open our record, still in revision in progress. We'll hit save. It's still, that doesn't change, right? Our state's still the same, our status is still the same. How about copy? Copy, same thing, that works. And then retire. So we're going to retire it from the revision state, so that closes our record. Again, we'll open it up. We're in the retired state. That's good. So we have now tested all the revision. We've gotten to the retired state. We have tested unretired. We test. So we just need to test this copy, and then the unretire active hidden, and then we will have been fully tested. Copy. All right. All right, no change. That's what we expected. And then unretire active hidden is the last. And we are back to active for our status. Try active state. Retired is our previous status. Okay, we've now validated all of our state family. Our statuses are set correctly. Our previous statuses are set correctly. Our transitions that are supposed to close are closing. And the ones that aren't. So, looks good. I think we're safe at this point, that we've got a good base form. This way, as we create our other forms and BOs and stuff in our module, and we're going to inherit or copy our base objects, this way we will get to make sure that they start off good, right? Because if we didn't do this testing, right, look at all the mistakes that we found. Right, all that would have been propagated into our next objects, and then we would have, well, for the first object, we'd have twice as many things to fix. So we don't want that. So what we have to do now is we need to go back to our form builder, and we need to update all those hidden transitions to be hidden again and not visible. And then one last quick, cycle through, and we should be good. So I will start here the null, click on any of the hidden transitions. Let me make sure that I'm in revision. so that the changes will take effect. Otherwise I'll be doing it again. So default display, uncheck, tire hidden, uncheck, and apply. Do I have any hidden? I do have one hidden here. Uncheck and apply. Here's a hidden. Uncheck and apply. Another hidden. Uncheck and apply. One more hidden. Uncheck and apply. Alright, so that does that. We'll save our state family. Just do a quick spot check. Click on some of these hidden guys, make sure they're alright, that's looking good. We'll publish our form, we'll get those changes, and so now we're ready to go ahead and proceed on with our development. So not really sure what's next, but I do want to thank you for watching, and look forward to seeing you next time. Alright friends, that wraps up another episode of the TRIRIGA War Room. Thank you for watching this episode. If you like these videos and you find them helpful, please do like and subscribe to the channel. Your subscriptions are the only way that I have to know if you find these videos helpful and if I should continue to make them or not. I do these videos on my own time. I'm not currently compensated in any way for them, so if they're not helpful, I'd much rather go and work on some of my other side projects. So here at the TRIRIGA War Room, we really do want to be your expert advisors and to help you to better implement and use TRIRIGA. So if you have any ideas for future videos, or even if you would like to guest instruct a future video, please do let me know. Again, thanks for watching. We look forward to seeing you next time.